different, the data, and you can say in the text format. And now it's a challenge, for example, for the government to take decisions. So they had a different data, but not in, you can say, in the digital format. They had some data in text format, some written somewhere in the records, maybe some, maybe then some PDF, maybe somewhere written there. So the data was not useful. So I mean, at that time, it's very difficult for the systems, the government to take decisions. They needed some kind of a digital data, right? So what they started there, they have started digitalizing the, the entire, you can say, the reports they have, and also the data which were coming. Now they have started digitalizing it. So, whenever you create a digital repository, you have a huge data, right? And then you take decisions on top of it. So, I mean, the digitalization is something that is also one of the key, important concepts before you use any AI. So you might have used this Veeam application. So, whenever you use Veeam applications, you are trying to, create, leverage this digital transformation kind of a thing, so that the large masses can use it. So the Veeam app is one of the, you can say, the applications you see, and you are using. So that if you see, there are also, the local, vendors, they typically use this Veeam app. So now you are bringing each and every penny count to the economy. Before it was that, there was a cash exchange, so there was a huge, you can say, the money, wastage of money, and also the black money. So now this digital transformations in form of this Veeam app, they are trying to track it, because whenever you are able to track, you are saving a lot of money. So how AI and, using as an enabler and strategically. So obviously, if you see, there are different reports at the same time. So also, if I talk about the Deloitte, so they work with the European automation giant, and they, in their systems, in the supply chain, they have integrated this AI, right? So what they have done, once they have integrated this AI in their supply chain management, their order accuracy was increased to 30%. If you see the increasing of the order, if you are able to increase the order by 30%, if you see how much revenue it is going to create, right? So it's very important that, how you are using this AI. At the same time, if you see the Unilever, it's one of the, huge organizations, and I think you all know the Unilever and all that. So, I mean, their inventory management systems, because it's very, it's really very challenging to, how to reduce this overstocking, because whenever you just file each and every inventory and you are not selling it, right? So it's very difficult to, how you can mitigate this problem, right? So Unilever, they came up with this AI, and they integrated this AI into their supply chain management, and they are able to reduce it by 22%. So which is very much significant, because overstocking, if you are able to reduce it, the overstocking, you are able to somehow, generate a huge revenue. So that is the something which I'm just trying to bring attention to, that how using this AI, you can leverage this. And it's very much important that, in management information systems, supply chain, and ERP, if you're using this AI, how you can create an impact in your business. So we will talk later on that how it's going to create impact whenever you integrate this AI into your systems. So now, how I'm just talking about this business intelligence. So for example, before you might have seen, I'm just assuming you might come across some, a product, or maybe a tool called Power BI. So we all know that this Power BI has something called a business intelligence. It's a business intelligence tool. So typically, when you use Power BI, so you have a different kind of data. For example, if it is coming from different, the database, maybe if it is coming a real-time data, maybe if you have some, historical data. And now let's say you have a huge sales data, and now you want to take decisions on top of it. So how are you going to take these decisions? Because if you have a crores of data, right, and there are multiple features, so how are you going to create, some kind of a decisions, some kind of a data-driven decision? So, this business intelligence, these two, let's say Power BI, and now in the Power BI, if you're integrating AI on top of it, you are able to extract some kind of a pattern, right? So ultimately, when you work in any industry, I think they are more interested in how you are coming up with the decisions. They are not interested in your data, that how you have collected this data. That is also important, but how you are coming up with these decisions. So if you are able to integrate this, this AI into it, you are able to give some kind of intelligence to them, because ultimately client wants that how you are coming up with these decisions. So if you see the Coca-Cola, one of the this soft drink organization. So the Coca-Cola, what they have done is they have used this AI to forecast, the demand based on the weather. For example, if it's, let's say it's too hot weather outside, you are not gonna order the coffee, right? Hot coffee, but obviously you'll go and come up with some kind of even order some soft drink, right? So obviously the Coca-Cola uses this AI, right, to come up with this some kind of a the demand forecasting. So now I just want to bring in something called agentic AI. So what is agentic AI? If you come across, you might have heard of AI agent, and might have the small example is ChatGPT, but how it typically works. So the AI agent typically works with, whenever you have some kind of external data, for example, weather data. If you are integrating weather data, let's say you are sitting in a coffee shop, right? But your system is, AI system is giving you recommendation that it's weather, it's the cool weather, so why don't you, order some more coffee. The different types of coffee they not give you if you are using this AI system. So what they are doing it. So they are integrating the weather data inside it. So that is something called AI agents. So you might have heard of something called autonomous AI agent. So these are the some concepts now business is using on top of this to create some kind of intelligence. And now if you have intelligence, then you take decisions on top of it, right? So if you see the Gartner analytics, because I know I'm talking about this Gartner because the Gartner is premium in the analytics that give you the data, right? So the Gartner, what they have come up with in 2024, that the AI-powered business, whenever you're integrating AI to the business, they are able to reduce some kind of a human bias, right? So for example, if you are creating any machine learning model, and there are a huge intervention of humans. So each and every humans, for example, carries some kind of a bias, right? So I'm just giving you data to annotate it. For example, I'm just giving you some kind of a financial data, right, to annotate it. So how are you going to annotate that financial data? For example, you don't know much about the finance. You are more into IT, right? Maybe you are more into HR domain, and I have given you data of finance to annotate it, right? Just to classify the some kind of a data, right? So obviously, as you are unaware of it, you may bring some kind of a biasness. So if you are using some kind of AI, right, that biasness can be reduced. That is why AI plays an important role just to mitigate this kind of a biasness. Okay, so these are the few reports. And also, if you see the Deloitte, what they have done is in one of the retail chain, they have automated this sales, and they are able to reduce the report generation time by 60%. So obviously, when you use the business intelligence tool, for example, Power BI, so obviously you are more interested into their reports nothing but more of a EDA, you can say the exploratory data analysis, and based on that it creates some kind of reports. So reports should be, obviously it should be logical reports. So how, if I'm automating it, for example, if I have to every single time, if I have to download the same reports, so how I am gonna download it? So obviously, if I'm putting an element of AI on top of it, so I will get some kind of automation to it. So they are taking and saving time a lot, and to make the decisions which are more into AI driven. So these are the few concepts that typically used in when you take some kind of integrate some kind of intelligence on top of this AI and all that. Okay. So now this is interesting slide, and I just like to invest a few times here. So, I mean, my aim of this slide is to make you aware of the Gen AI concept, because how this Gen AI and it's creating I mean a lot of jobs. At the same time, it requires, if you want to go into this Gen AI, obviously you need to be more skilled. Okay, so how this the Gen AI can be used in this enterprises. So obviously, if you see, there are a few concepts in the left side. If you see, so there is something called a foundation models. So obviously the foundation models and these foundation models has a, you can say the basic models is called foundation models. For example, ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a basic model. You can say the foundation model. For example, you might have heard of a few models, maybe a Gemini model, maybe there are a few Chinese models which are in the market. So these are the basic models, right? So what types of these AI, these bots, or maybe the Chat GPT, or maybe the foundation models, what typically they does, right? So they may collect some kind of a data that you can use it, for example, for the report generation. For example, if you are giving 10 pages reports to maybe the Chat GPT, maybe GPT-4 now. So how they are coming up with this kind of a summary, right? For example, if you want to generate some kind of a summary, and let's say if same task is given to the human, right? Even if you are skilled, maybe if you match the responses which are coming from the AI systems and the human systems, for example, the human, right? So you'll see the contrast. Their responses are typically different, but at the same time, you cannot rely on these kind of a foundation models, because ultimately you have to understand the responses which are generating out of this, the foundation model are relevant or not, whether it is matching your ground truth or not, right? So these are the few, the concept of this generative AI. But at the same time, if you see, the safety, ethics, compliance, these are more important. Okay. So if you see on the right side also, that how artificial intelligence will reshape the workplace and employee experience. So now, I mean, obviously, if you see this one, there are a different way to integrate it, and you can use it for communication collaborations. You can use it for CI/CX designing. At the same time, you can automate your MIS also using the Gen AI concepts. Okay, so the entire agenda of this generative AI obviously is to increase the productivity, but at the same time, how you cannot rely every time on the response which are generating from this the Gen AI models. If you see, I mean, whether the responses are ethically correct or not, whether the prompt which you are giving to the model are, whether it's ethically correct or not, and also whether it matches the compliance of your industry or not. So these are the few the problems which come across, and also you cannot blindly use it. Okay, but now enterprises is using Gen AI, because now data has a huge, now they have a huge data piled up. Even if you see in the government organizations, they have a huge data, right? And these huge data is creating a problem, because they are not able to communicate with these data and also to bring some kind of insights to it. That is where the Gen AI concepts, using this vast amount of data, that can be used. And on top of it, if you're using any foundation model, their APIs, for example, then your problem can be solved, because the huge, the amount of data, their patterns can easily be understood using these foundation models. So that is why people are looking for this Gen AI now, in place of this, the traditional ML model. Okay. So now there are different challenges at the same time. If you are using this, the AI, it's not like, if you are integrated your AI to the systems, for example, in management information system, or maybe in the sales automation process, or if you are using any business automation, or for example, if you are using any, the models which are AI driven, it's not like your each and every problem is solved. At the same time, if you are integrating this AI, there are challenges, right? So how you are going to address it? Because you must understand that your model has some biasness. If you see, the challenges and opportunity, let me just explain few, the challenges, because it's not about the AI ML. At the same time, if you're using the few sophisticated model, for example, Gen AI models. So it doesn't mean that if you're using Gen AI models each and every time, your system is gonna give you more, sophisticated answer or more correct answer. It's not like that, but they come up with this some kind of a biasness. Okay, so there are issues with some kind of ethical concern when you use any AI model. There is also some kind of a lack of transparency. For example, if you are using a Chat GPT, and if you are asking some questions, let's say about the the political system of India, they may give you some kind of responses. They may lack some kind of a transparency. At the same time, they give you some kind of a vague answers, may hallucinate at the same time. There is some concept of this hallucination at the same time, right? Because if you see the concept of hallucinations, I mean, it's they give you the response, but they are factually incorrect. That is the hallucination. And now this all AI agent, the all GPTs, the all the all sophisticated large language model, if you see the all bots, they all lack this kind of a problem. They are not able to solve these hallucinations. So now the hallucinations is like, they give you the answers, but they are factually incorrect. That is why people do not rely on these models. It's too early to rely on. But also there is some kind of explainability and data privacy and security problems, because whenever you give data, your own data, for example, your university is designing some kind of AI chatbot, let's say, and they just want to give some kind of reports, each and every year's, let's say, report to the model. So obviously model, you cannot give your confidential data to these models, because it comes into data privacy. Obviously you cannot give sensitive information. So how you gonna still use these models, to create some kind of a chatbot by, not giving this data, sensitive data. So there comes, the data masking. So you just mask the data and try to create a problem, try to create some kind of a models. So let me just, just give you a brief overview of something called a RAG. That is something called a retrieval augmented generation. You might have heard of this term. So what typically RAG does is they just try to, enhance the capability of the models. For example, they take your university, data, maybe in the PDF, maybe in the Excel. On top of it, they create some kind of augmentation. They try to just enhance the, the capability of the models, and they try to give the each and every information. They cater it, they pre-train it, and then when you ask any questions, so based on those symmetry, or you can say the distributions, they give you the answers. So where you can eliminate this data privacy using the RAG systems. But when it comes to this explainability, if you see, there is something called explainability, right? So if you're using any models, for example, if I'm using ChatGPT to come up with some kind of reports, right? I'm giving my organization's data to the ChatGPT, and I'm telling them to just summarize it and just give some the key points out of it. But the point is that they give you the response, but you don't know what models they have used. So because in basic, if you see the traditional machine learning model, you know how your data is being trained and how response is being generated. But when you use any black box model, for example, ChatGPT, it's a classical example of a black box model. You don't know how they are coming up with the response, because there is some kind of a black layer, and how they are coming up with this, from the input to the output. Because when you give some kind of a prompt to summarize the, the documents, so they give you the summarizations. And each and every time, if you irritate it, for example, if you say that, no, I'm not, I'm happy with this response, so they're gonna give you the second response, third response, right? So still they lack this kind of explainability, because the human doesn't understand that how they are coming up with the response. So these are the few challenges, but at the same time there are the opportunity, right? So what are the opportunity if you see? So there is some kind of this efficiency. If you see, there are new models they can use. You can use it, this AI models, AI driven approach for the economic growth, scientific discovery, the improved customer experience, enhanced decision making. You all know these are the opportunity, right? So, but the opportunity at the same time, you have to think of these challenges as well, right? So now let me just talk about this tube map, which Deloitte typically use. So what they have done, they have used something called this for the holistic AI business transformation framework. Deloitte has they have used this tube map. So they typically call it a tube map. So it's a holistic this AI business transformations.
Satyajit, can we take some questions before?
Yeah, sure. I would happy to take some questions. Yeah.
Yes. What is the question? On this side, if you have any question, you can ask.
If you have any question, you can ask me directly. Yeah.
Yes.
Many companies invest highly in AI, but not all see a strong ROI. What are the biggest mistakes businesses make when integrating AI into their operations?
Can you come again, because it's very difficult to understand.
Many companies highly invest in AI, but not all see a strong ROI. What are the biggest mistakes businesses make when integrating AI into their operations?
Okay. His question is that many companies are investing in AI, but the companies are not receiving a single kind of ROI. So what kind of mistakes companies are making, or what kind of insight?
Yeah, for example, if okay, let me just give the answers. Okay, so if you see each and every organizations are using AI to their systems, maybe if you see the to increase the sales and also to some kind of increase the customer the experience and their retention and all that. But yeah, they do not get ROI. Obviously, it means they lack some kind of the modeling, how they have modeled it. Maybe their data is the quality of data they have, and the kind of a sophisticated modeling they are using. That is the one part, because whenever you come up with any kind of modeling, and obviously the data is something that is very critical to it, because the data part, if your data has a problem, obviously your model will give you the biased result. So based on the biasness, if you're taking any decision, so how you're gonna increase the ROI, right? So this is the first part. Second part is that each and everywhere you cannot use this AI. For example, I work with Skill India Digital. It's under the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. I have integrated a recommendation engine to it, but the end user, the students are not using it. So how they're gonna come up with the return, right? So obviously there is a problem with the usage. People hesitate to use it. So that is the second point. So how you're gonna convert it into some kind of a revenue, right? So these are the two problems that I feel that should be taken care of before adapting to any AI-driven digital transformation to any organizations. Yeah.
Yes, you can.
So a lot of AI, especially for is really only effective for larger corporations that have the resources to work on those models with in-house, so to speak. So if you were to say a small or medium scale business, how would you leverage these automation tools when you don't have the resources to develop your own engine, or to find this, or like you could certainly use general AI. But general AI is obviously limited in its applications because it is generalized in this way. So if you were a small or medium scale business, how would you go about implementing these technologies when you don't have the resources to burn, like say an IBM or a Microsoft?
Yeah, okay. So let me just answer you this question. This one is quite interesting, and even I felt that, because the last client to whom I worked with, they had a problem with using any kind of APIs. So let me just answer you in two parts. First one is, you don't have a skilled workers, and even the organization is, let's say, MSME kind of organization, and they don't have any resources, and they do not have in-house capability, right? So how you're gonna still use this AI and to come up with some kind of solutions, right? So for example, let me just come across. For example, you cannot create a chatbot kind of model in a day. it requires, huge amount of data to train on. For example, the ChatGPT or Gemini model, they have read entire internet, and you do not have, capability as a MSME to, read entire, the internet, and on top of it use these, the sophisticated, you can say, the modeling, or maybe you require a lot of resources. So still there is a scope. There is one platform called Hugging Face. I'm just giving you a clue. Still, you can use a small language model, because the small language model, and if you're using this retrieval augmented generation, so it's a free, right? And you can use this kind of, the free pre-trained model. So now it's the era of pre-trained model. You cannot go with the large language model each and every time, because if you see the accuracy, the response of large language model, and even if you use it using this small language model, you will feel there is a difference. And there are many MSME which I know personally, they are using this Hugging Face platform, which is which cater the small language model. So that is the one part that can be used, even if you don't have a resource, skilled workers, and even in-house capability. That is the one part. So I mean, this is how you can tackle it. Yeah.
So, if the data which is fed into the system, into the AI system or MIS is wrong or incorrect, won't the whole process of making a decision be issue? And also, is there any new way or new kind of AI system which can, reduce the wrong data which is fed into the system?
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, if the data fed into the system is incorrect or wrong, won't the whole process of making a decision in the future can be an issue?
Okay, so I mean, just let me rephrase it. If I'm correct, then just let me know. Let's say, I mean, you are saying if you are giving a system data incorrectly, right?
Sure.
Okay, and then what you want?
Then won't the process of making, like, in the future, because you use the past data to make a decision in the future, right? So won't the process of making a decision in the future using, an AI-driven MI system can be, an issue?
Okay, so okay, I mean, what I understood. Okay, for example, there is one concept of data drift. For example, let me just give you one scenario, because before COVID, let's say the consumption of the digital content was very limited. But once COVID hit in the market, the huge surge of this digital content, right? And their pattern of this, you can say the digital consumers, they have increased. So the models which was trained on the previous pre-COVID era data was now being replaced with this, this new data model. So you have to think of this. There is something called a data drift. You have to implement. There is a concept of data drift into your model, so that the old data, whatever you had previously that was trained on, you can replace it with the new data. There is a data versioning tool, DVC, that is being used when you create some kind of a modeling. That is the future part, right? So that you can integrate the data versioning, keeping data drift in the mind, and at the same time, you can solve this problem, right? So this is how it can be tackled. You can tackle this, yeah.
Any question on this side or that side? Satyajit, you can start us.
Yeah, okay, so now I have just 10 minutes, so let me just finish it, okay? So if my screen starts showing, just let me know. So I was at the TubeMap, and it's just a digital transformation strategy of Deloitte. So they have used this TubeMap. So now, I mean, what they have done, I mean, they have, these are some basic things which they have used in TubeMap. They are saying it is a TubeMap, right? So, they align these AI efforts, and integrated it, and these are in each and every functions they have used this AI. So they are typically call it this TubeMap. So, but my main focus is let me just switch on to this. this customer experience. Okay, so I mean, how you're gonna increase the customer experience, right? So if you're using this AI, let's say, so I mean, the last question which you people have asked, I mean, the how, the customer experience kind of a thing that can be taken care of. Okay, so obviously, if there are, let's say, e-commerce organizations and they are integrating AI into their business model, for example, let's say Amazon, they do use this, this AI into their systems. For example, if you see their recommendation engines, so if you're buying, let's say, shoes, they're gonna recommend you also to buy some kinds of, let's say, sports t-shirts, may possibly if you're buying some kind of a healthcare product. So they're gonna also tell you to, why don't you buy some kind of, related, you can say, maybe the protein powder, maybe some kind of the more related, drug, right? So, I mean, these are the AI parts which can be used, to elevate the customer experience. So, if you see, there are different chatbots. For example, in e-commerce, this Amazon. So you have an integration of this chatbot. So I was giving one of the example of AI agents. So what typically they does? So they work as an AI agent, but at the same time they take some kind of external feedback to create some kind of a response out of it. For example, if the weather outside is good, they're gonna give you some kind of a recommendation because their data are integrated with this weather information that is called a telemetry data. The systems, AI systems are integrated with telemetry data. So whenever there is change in weather, so they recommend you based on the weather outside. So this is one of the example of using AI to create some kind of the customer experience, right? So you are increasing the customer experience at the same time, right? And the kind of a support which you are giving to, right? So, and also there are the models which they use the augmented reality. For example, if you are going in a mall and you're standing in front of a mirror, right? And if you love to wear some kind of a clothes, so you just sit in front of the mirror and you select the dress. So through this augmented reality, the AI driven, so they give you experience that how you're gonna look like, right, when you wear it. So before purchasing it, you can feel like how I feel when I wear it. So this is also enhancing it. You can say augmenting the customer experience, right? So these are the few examples where customer retentions, the increase of sales, at the same time augmenting the customer experience can be used through this AI-enabled decision making, right? If you are creating AI-enabled systems, right? And now I'll talk a few more about this, this AI fairness, and then I'll try to end. So, I mean, you might have heard of something called AI fairness, but whenever you're using any kind of AI models, so the fairness is something that you need to take care of, because you may become someday data scientist, machine learning engineer, right? So at that time, you'll come across this AI fairness. So let me just give you one example, because earlier when this LinkedIn used for recommending the jobs, they used to discriminate the female at that time because they had a biased data. So whenever a female used to, used to enter into the systems, they used to put their resume. Most majority of the time, this LinkedIn used to, discard it because their model was so biased. At that time, we had only the information of men only. So, you have to take care of the biasness because you cannot discriminate based on gender, right? At the same time, you have to also eliminate those factors. For example, caste, religion, you typically eliminate. You don't take as a features to train a model, because whenever you put a religion, for example, caste, for example, the gender, maybe some model also do not take care of the salary, because you cannot discriminate based on the salary. For example, if some government policy is to be given, you cannot take this salary, because if someone is getting more salary, he should be given some kind of a policy. It can't be possible. So you have to take care of this AI fairness. So whenever you use any AI models, you must be responsible enough. So that is why there is a term called responsible AI. You must be responsible enough whenever you're creating any AI models. So at the last, I'll talk, more on this, that how AI, driven digital transformations has a significant impact on different businesses and different you can say the aspects of a business. So obviously, if you see some kind of process automation, so earlier there was something called robotic process automation. So it was a more of a static, kind of a decision making. People used to ask the questions, and whatever related to the answers they used to give you through the database. It's kind of a static database. But whenever you integrated this AI, so now they think, right? So as I already discussed, there is something called agentic AI. So your model think before answering you. So earlier it was like a Google search. So whenever you had some kind of a query, people used to give the prompt, and it's like a search. Whatever it comes in, it's kind of a beam search. So they used to display the response. It was a more of a the static response. But when it comes to generative, the models, when you use AI, they come across something called a generative AI. So they give you a response, but a human generated content. So process automation has also increased, and obviously they have increased their operations and efficiency. And that the decision making enhancement, now, because whenever you use AI on top of any modeling, right, and maybe the Power BI, or maybe you're creating any models which are AI driven, then obviously their decision making would be a bit enhanced, right? So obviously, because they are trained on a vast amount of data, human cannot think of, because there is a hidden pattern, right? You cannot think. You can only think on a 2 dimensions. But let's say if you have a huge, the features, you cannot think in that line. So that require use to use this some kind of a modeling AI. You have to think in that line, right? And there is something called personalized customer experience. So I just given an example of this augmented reality and some kind of recommendation engine. For example, the e-commerce. In Amazon, if you are buying some stuff X, they give you this, the bucket of the recommendations that why don't you buy this, right? So it's personalized experience. It's not like you can say the global recommendation. So there is something called a global recommendations. So I mean, if you see any websites or maybe e-commerce, you'll see there are they give you a list of the product which people have bought, right? So it's like a global recommendation. So but whenever you get into login, through the login you'll see your own recommendation. So that is a personalized, and there is something called a predictive analytics. So obviously I assume that this demand forecasting, maybe some kind of a market trend. If you're predicting, maybe the sales and all that, that will come under this predictive analytics. So you are predicting based on historical data, right? Then you have something called a fraud detection and cyber security. So obviously the huge implication of AI into cyber security, right? So now you might have seen something called a deep fake, right? So I mean, even your deep fake can be created. You might have seen, one of the actors, their deep fake was created, right? So that is a problem with this AI also. There is a black side of this AI, because the cyber security is more challenging, the cyber bullying, right? So I mean, the people personate as a real person, and then they give you some kind of, they extract money out of it. So that is something that can be taken care of, because there is a huge challenge, because whenever AI is maturing, it is also coming up with some kind of a burden, right? Then there is something called cost reductions. So you use this, I have given already the examples how you can reduce the cost, and AI powered product innovation. So I mean, to create some kind of a smart product, and for example, autonomous vehicle is one of the examples, because they take informations out from the environment, and then they decide and how to drive a car, and without using the human, because they take information. That is something called reinforcement learning. They learn from their mistakes. So yeah. And then employee productivity, obviously, you can automate the repetitive task. If you have a same task every day, if you are generating same report from Power BI every day, So you can use this AI. So if you want that report to be downloaded at 12 o'clock, so you can use this, you can automate using this AI. So AI will trigger that code, and your report would be easily generated, right? And this cloud integration. So obviously, there is one concept of ML ops, because now people are operationalizing this model. Earlier, if you go back 10, 12 years back, people used to create a model and that was not into operation. So now people are operationalizing it, because when you are bringing your model to the end customers, then only you can generate the revenue, right? So it's very much important to operationalize it. So there comes a concept of DevOps and ML ops. And customer support, as the last example, the e-commerce. If you see, even you see in the medical domain, people are using different, the chatbots. For example, if you're ill and you just want, if you're giving some kind of, let's say, symptoms to it. Let's say if I'm giving, let's say I have a COVID, but I don't know. If I'm giving my symptoms, my model is going to give some kind of a response, right? Same is with e-commerce, and there are different, you can say, financial organizations. For example, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, they have integrated this AI. So whenever you put a query, they navigate your query and then they resolve you back. So these are the some, the usage of AI that are transforming it, and they are enhancing and the customer experience at the same time to take decisions, and that can be used for the revenue generations and creating the nice customer experience at the same time. So these are the few, you can say, the examples of the AI transformation at the same time using the business growth, and this drive the business growth at the same time. So these are the few examples. So yeah, so I mean, if you have any query now, you can ask. So
Any question from this side?
if you have any query, you can ask, and I would love to answer it, because very interesting session. Yeah.
So when we were talking about AI-driven digital transformations, I wanted to ask, what sort of AI-driven transformations do you think we could apply to the public sector, especially in a country like India, where so much government work still happens on pen and paper? So in a country where digitization itself still hasn't hit a full 100%, how can we implement, say, AI-driven technology to help take things forward?
Yeah. Okay. So one of the example which I just try to give you is, in the Rajasthan government, what they typically were doing, I think, is there is something called, similar to Aadhaar card, there is something called Jan Aadhaar. If you could, if you might be from that place. So there is something called Jan Aadhaar. So what typically does in Jan Aadhaar is, there are multiple, people, they use this Jan Aadhaar and they take, benefits of the government. So I'm talking in that sense, not to use how government can use, but how government can use to track the people who are creating a problem, right? So there are people who create a multiple Jan Aadhaar. So how you can tackle that? Because government is giving, let's say, 10,000 rupees per year to a person who are holding this Jan Aadhaar, but there are multiple fake accounts. So how you gonna create AI models, AI-driven models? So that can also segregate it, whether it's a fake or they have a multiple user. So one of the POC which I have worked on was to see that who are the people who have the same name, age, address, the phone number, account number. So we have created something called a GenAI model, pre-trained model, to tackle that. So that is the one way to solve this problem. Other one is how, for example, there is something called, for example, in Maharashtra government, so they have created something called, this gas connection pipeline, because each and every household, they wanted to predict that which households should be given a gas connections, because, for example, there are, let's say, 10 house members and their financial, conditions and their locality and everything. So they have modeled it. And they have seen that the patterns that which household should be given and which should not be. So you can create a model out of that to come up with some kind of decision making on top of it. And also, if you see this this digital wallet that can be used, and to create some kind of to give some kind of, I mean, the money to the large populations. So you can model it that who all are the poor, who you can segregate, you can apply some kind of clustering technique out of it. You can, cluster it, and then you can decide which policy to be given. So these are the few you can, the AI-driven solutions you can bring in, and the government can use it, and they are using it. Okay. So yeah.
Any questions on this? Yes.
So I just have a second question just to inquire. One of the biggest challenges that we have with AI currently is that it's difficult to fact check the information that AI gives you. It's more interested in giving you an answer so much as it's, checking whether that answer is right or not. So, so as we are increasingly becoming more tech driven, and organizations are beginning to lean into using this technology. Say on a human to human level, there are multiple checks and balances. Say an employee who has like a supervisor, who has a manager. So like human error can get stopped and corrected on the way. So in that sense, when we're working with large language models, what sort of checks and balances can be put in place to ensure that the data we're working with is accurate? Like beyond just human intervention.
Okay, so what I got.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Prashant. Yeah, Professor Prashant, yeah, you're audible. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So,
So students. Yeah.
They are asking a question, so let them ask. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So I'm just answering them. So yeah, I mean, what I got from your question. So what I understood from your question is, I mean, the how this you can say the Gen AI model, and if they are giving factually incorrect answers, how you can mitigate it, right? Is it something like that? Okay.
Yeah,
And
in the sense that, like short of just, taking a result and then manually fact checking it, what are the, say, tech-driven solutions might there be for ensuring that the information is accurate? Instead of just manually checking, what like technology-driven solutions could there be?
So you are seeing the response generating out of any LLMs, how you can fact check, right?
Yes, sir. Sure. Like instead of just manually checking whether it's correct or not, what sort of technology-based solutions are there for it?
Okay, yeah, interesting one. So yeah, I mean, in one of the use cases which I was working with, it was a more of a small chatbot, and the response, I used to check with the facts, the ground truth. There is something called a ground truth and the actual response, right? So ground truth is obviously, it is there in your training data set. That is a ground truth, and the response which are coming from your LLMs is the generated response, right? So how are you going to fact check? So there is two elements which I'll talk about. There is something called hallucination, you know that, and second one is there is something called guardrails. So you don't want some response to be coming from your model, so you just put some kind of a guardrails. You just define that I don't want these kind of words, these kind of a sentence, or maybe I don't want something like that to be printed out, that should be generated out from the LLMs, right? So that is something that you can do. But when it comes to AI driven, that whether the response which are coming from the model are factually correct or not. So there are some kind of a matrices that we typically handle. There is something called BLEUE score, BLEUE, Meteor score, ROG1, ROG2. So what they typically does is they typically go and see the differences of the response which are in your training data and the response which are generated. So they see the deviations, how much there is a deviations in the response, and they see if there are 5 to 10% deviations. So they see as a factually correct answers. But at the same time, there is a one concept of which I can recall is there is something called LLM as a judge, right? You might have heard of this term, LLM as a judge. So if you are using more than 2-3 models, Gen AI models, and the responses are coming from, let's say, 3 models. For example, if you have let's say using ChatGPT, Gemini model, and then maybe there is a one Chinese model, maybe you are using, let's say DeepSeek you are using, and the one can be act as a, let's say, generator. Then you have some validators, and then there is a factual corrector, so that can be used as a judge. So you can use these three models to check the validity of the responses, and at the same time you can eliminate this. So you can come across this kind of a, you address this factually correct answer. So you can use it, this LLM as a judge, right? Yeah.
Satyajit, I have a question, and thank you for this insightful session. Based on your experience, when you are as a consultant move to any SMEs, then what kind of challenges do you see related to how these SMEs can transform themselves using emerging technologies like AI or any emerging technology? But most of the companies, most of the enterprises which are falling under SMEs, having its own challenge since the last 20 years. So in current context, what kind of challenge? So they are facing competition from exporting countries like China, and they are facing resource crunch at the domestic level. So what kind of challenges do you see, and what kind of solutions you as a consultant provide to them? I would like to hear based on your experience when you are there on the field.
I mean, what I understood, okay, so as a Deloitte, I mean, we do provide consulting to different organizations, and at the same time we are more into, you can say, in the government sector. So when it comes to MSME, what I understood, your question was a lengthy one. So what I understood, how you can use this AI and all that, to help MSME, what I understood. MSME has their limitations, because they have, they try not to use this kind of a digital, they hesitate to use, because this kind of a digital, transformations and all that. But as a consultant, you have to look into their business problems. So what is their use case first, and then you can formulate some kind of AI-driven solution. So depending on each and every MSME, they have the use case. For example, Karnataka government, they had some use case to build this predictive modeling, but they are not MSME. But when it comes to a small organization, for example, private organizations, and they want to use this AI ML, so obviously the challenges are a variety of the challenges. So one is that they are skilled worker in AI ML, they have a limited skilled people, and also they hesitate to use this AI ML. But at the same time, if you show them their the revenue growth, and if you see them the futures and all that, that can work. So I'll have to look into the business problem, and then I can tell you the exact solutions. But as per my knowledge and experience, I see MSME. There are many MSME who wants to use this digital transformation to enhance their productivity and to augment their productivity. But at the same time, they lack in this scalability. The skill, there is a skill gap and all that. So yeah, that needs to be taken care of as a consultant when designing any AI systems to these MSME. Yeah.
Thank you, Satyajit. If you have any other questions.
So I have, yeah. So there are multiple human practices done by work from home people, for example. So instead of doing their work, they install certain tools like moving the mouse and all, so that the MIS, the tracking system that they have, make sure that they are working, but they are not exactly working, right? So how can you mitigate such things using this new and upcoming AI systems?
Yeah. Okay. This one is quite interesting, and I think yeah. So it's very difficult to answer, but let me come up with some kind of answers, right? So just let me think on, right? So obviously, the work from home has its challenges, right? So even I worked as I worked for work from home during this COVID, This happens the way you are seeing. So, I mean, how are you going to track it? So obviously, you can use this computer vision technique. You have to, put something in place that can forcefully open this, some kind of a sensor. So if you are not opening this camera, right? At least you have to capture the gesture, their movement. You have to model first the human, their entire, you can say the features, maybe how he looks like. So you have to first take care of that person and who are working from home as a model. First, you have to model it. For example, if you have, let's say, 20 employees who are working from home, we have to take care of, you have to take their features, that, how he looks like, and I mean, everything, and their facial recognition and everything. And then you have to put gesture at the same time, gesture movement, at the same time, the computer vision techniques, which you can incorporate it to find out whether that person is there or not in that vicinity. So at that moment also you have to capture the gesture plus computer vision plus the location. So these three concepts which you have to integrate it to come up with some kind of a model. So whenever a new person comes in, let's say if I am talking right now, if some person comes in, so if it is a new to the model, so my model is going to give flag that the person who have entered in the room is a new person. So that can be one way out to model it and come up with this kind of a solutions. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and Professor Prashant, are you there? Okay. Satyajit, thank you for this session, and I enjoyed listening to you, and I love to connect with you in future for some kind of collaboration or knowledge sharing. Because the kind of knowledge you share, especially when any practitioner comes and shares their knowledge in the class, that's a new lesson for even faculty. So thank you for this session. And class, we will say thank you to our guest speaker.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, entire class, and it was lovely talking to you. It feels like I'm sitting in the class, so even I felt like going to college. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Satyajit. And closing this team session, and we will connect after class so that we can share and inquire.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.